Welcome to the 61st Annual Nebula Awards, sponsored by the Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers Association.
Chicagowinak, Chicago, and Illinois, Illinois, are the ancestral homelands of the Potawatomi, Ojibwe, Odawa, Sac and Fox, Menominee, Ho-Chunk, Kickapoo, Meskwaki, Delaware, Shawnee, Miami, Nalini, and Peoria. Chicago is currently home to one of the largest and most diverse urban indigenous populations in the U.S. Indigenous people carry a sacred relationship with the land as its original stewards. Militarized removal, ethnocide, and subsequent assimilation policies separated indigenous people from their land. We recognize that paying respect to the immeasurable role that indigenous people have always played in protecting the land and shaping its history is an important step toward building a more equitable, prosperous, and sustainable future for all. Please welcome the Poet Laureate of Chicago, Maida Alexandra Del Valle.
Good evening, my name is Maida Del Valle and I'm Chicago's second Poet Laureate. Welcome to the Nebula Awards and welcome to the greatest city in the world. It's an honor to open up an evening dedicated to people who imagine new worlds. And I want to share a piece of my world with you this evening and a story about who and what I am rooted in that allows me to imagine what I can build and create in the future. This piece is about my grandmother, Segunda Martinez, and it's entitled La Marea, which means the tide, Segunda story. So the story goes, by the time she was 5 years old, my maternal grandmother, Segunda Martinez Rivera, had lost her mother and a baby brother that she adored. Ibaya, my great-grandmother, named Teresa Rivera, date of birth unknown, place of birth unknown, date of death unknown, resting place unknown. Ibaya, my granduncle, name unknown, date of birth unknown, place of birth unknown, date of death unknown, resting place unknown. For days or nights or weeks or months or some undisclosed, unknown stretch of time, my grandmother said she would cry herself to sleep, inconsolable, weeping for her mother and her little brother until one night, in her tear-soaked bed, she finally drifted off to sleep, and in that in-between place she was visited. The veil dissolved, and there was her little brother. I call him Tasio, short for Anastasio, his father's name, Teresa's common law partner, Anastasio Martinez, my maternal great-grandfather. Date of birth unknown, place of birth unknown, date of death unknown, resting place, Atillo, Puerto Rico. In the in-between of sleep and consciousness of death and life, there stood little Tasio. Maybe he was waving in the distance and maybe Segunda ran to him, seeing him just as she remembered, until she reached him and stopped still, noticing he was, in fact, just as she remembered, except that his hair, his clothes, and his entire body were dripping wet with water, water pooling at his feet, water falling from his tiny body, water reaching where Segunda stood, and Tasio spoke. Segunda, por favor no llores más, mira lo que me estás haciendo. Imagine a grief so tidal it could drown the dead in tears, a grief so deep only the ocean could rival it. Imagine the ghost of a child coming back to console you. I imagine my grandmother drowning. I imagine my grandmother reaching the bottom of the ocean floor. I imagine my grandmother breathing underwater and walking on a bed of seashells. I imagine the sea weeping with her. I imagine this might be the origin of the sorrow that lives in the heavy-chested women of my mother's family. I imagine that Tasio and Teresa, birth date, birthplace, death date, and resting place unknown, are somewhere swimming in a salty palace of pearls and starfish and iridescent fish that fractal the water into a prism. I say spirit and mean the living. I say living and mean ghosts. I say water and wonder what its language is. I say water and mean somewhere across a great divide of spirit or land or grief. I say water and mean the place I come from. From that day forward, Segunda stopped crying for her little brother.
And now, please welcome to the stage Tananarive Due. Tananarive is a writer and professor of Black speculative fiction whose latest novel, The Reformatory, won the Bram Stoker Award, World Fantasy Award, Los Angeles Times Book Prize, among other honors. Tonight, it is our honor to welcome her to the SFWA stage as our Toastmaster.
Hello, and welcome to the 61st Annual Nebula Awards. Who else feels greatness in this room? So many of my favorite authors, creators, and humans are sitting right here, alongside the memories of previous nominees and honorees, including ghosts like Octavia E. Butler, Arthur C. Clarke, Ursula K. Le Guin, and Isaac Asimov, as well as living legends like N.K. Jemisin, just to name a handful. What an honor it is to serve as Toastmaster for an event honoring so many of my deserving heroes, heroines, and peers. All of you are already winners, not because of an award, but because of the stories and voices you have brought into this world so badly in need of them. Who else in here could use some joy? Yes. And how fortunate are we that one of the biggest joys in our lives, writing and reading, has led us to this grand fellowship of creative, talented, and hardworking artists. My personal happy place is horror. And as we speak, maybe happening right now, I'm up for a Bram Stoker Award for, thank you, for an essay called My Long Road to Horror in the book Why I Love Horror, edited by Becky Siegel Stratford. Like many of you, for me, the road to genre was fraught with self-doubt. My elementary school teachers thought it was so cute when I was writing about children stowing away on spaceships or a boy with a talking cat. But by the time I enrolled in creative writing classes in college, it was clear that the Academy was not interested in genre. When I told a college workshop that my two favorite authors were Toni Morrison and Stephen King, my classmates looked aghast that I would mention a commercial horror author's name in those Ivy halls. And although my late mother was the first horror fan in my life, I was literally afraid that writing horror might bring shame to my family. Because, you see, my 91-year-old father, John Dorsey Due Jr., and my late mother, Patricia Stevens Due, were celebrated civil rights activists in the 1960s. Their names were in my college history books. So did I dare write horror or any genre with my head in the clouds, telling stories of imaginary people, places, and creatures when so much dire work in the real world remains? How interesting that the questions that paralyzed me as a young artist have reared up for so many of us again. When I was in college, conflicted about my love for writing, period, I asked my mother how being a writer could matter. And my mother told me that during the era of bombings and fire hoses and police dogs mauling children in the 1960s, the civil rights organization, the NAACP, dedicated time and resources to creating its Beverly Hills Hollywood branch to address racism in Hollywood. Why? Because they understood the power of representation. They understood the power of stories. 30 years after I published my first novel, I feel like I'm witnessing that power with my most recent novel, The Reformatory. To explain, let me take you back to 2013, very briefly, when I learned that I had a great uncle named Robert Stevens, who died at a children's prison called the Dozier School for Boys in Marianna, Florida in 1937. I was determined to write a novel to give Robert Stevens a better story, but the research was soul-killing as I read memoir after memoir by survivors who described horrific abuse at this facility, which operated for nearly 100 years. It was only shut down in 2011. So while I was on my book tour, one day I had interactions with a Black survivor who had been there in 1950 and a white survivor who was there in the 1990s, both of them traumatized for life. The research traumatized me. The reformatory took a village to write. My late mother's spirit was the guide for the courageous actions of my 17-year-old co-protagonist, Gloria Stevens. My husband, Stephen Barnes, gave me emotional support to challenge me to keep writing during periods when I tried to convince myself that I was too busy. My father helped me craft a scene in the judge's chamber based on his experiences as a civil rights lawyer in the South in the 1960s. When the COVID epidemic hit, I sent my writing into overdrive, terrified that I actually might not live to finish this novel, and it ultimately took me 7 years to write. Saga Press released The Reformatory in 2023, and it has reached more readers than any other novel I have ever published. And I've been publishing since 1995, but right now I feel like an overnight success. I think part of the reason The Reformatory is resonating with so many people is honestly because of the times. Like all speculative fiction, perhaps all art, The Reformatory is really about the world and times we actually live in now, not ghosts at a children's prison in 1950. One reviewer called my book a call to action. And these times we're currently living in demand action. It's our turn now as activists and whatever kinds of activism we can undertake, whether it's in the street protests, contributing to bail funds or political candidates, or in our own neighborhoods, our own children's schools. And it's our turn now as artists. It's our turn to paint alternatives, whether they're aspirational or cautionary tales, or both, like Parable of the Sower, which conveys hope even within a dystopia, that will help steer us toward the better world we all crave. In the 1960s, when Nichelle Nichols was showing the world that a Black woman could be a communications officer in space, and when she wanted to quit, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. told her, "We need you to stay." And true life Black women were helping our country go to space as hidden figures. My parents were demonstrating and organizing for integration, voting rights, workers' rights, you name it. My mother wanted to write a book describing her experiences because during her lifetime, she already saw history being erased. And we wrote a book together called Freedom in the Family, a mother-daughter memoir of the fight for civil rights. When I toured with my late mother, I always signed, "The Dream Lives," viewing the world from behind my rose-colored glasses as someone who had never seen a whites-only sign, the first generation of Black people in this country for whom segregation was illegal. But my mother, forever aware, like her peers, that there was much more work to be done, always signed her book, "The Struggle Continues." Well, Mom, you were right. The struggle continues. And any struggle, or if we use the truest name for what we're experiencing in the United States in 2026, any war, has many fronts. This is a copy of Parable of the Sower that Octavia Butler signed to my late mother. And Octavia wrote to my mother, I said I wouldn't look at it so it wouldn't make me cry, but she signed to Patricia Stevens Due and to a better future, Octavia Butler. Just one line, and it's an entire sermon. And whenever I look at that signature, witnessing the meeting of these two powerful women, one a titan in the world of literature and the other a warrior for civil rights, it only reminds me of the synergistic nature of art, the artist and the activist. My late mother also taught me how to dance. I remember being about 9 or 10 years old when Mom realized with horror that I had no rhythm. She began patting the beat. Yes, it can be taught. That's the thing. It's taught. She began patting the beat on my back. And I always loved dancing in clubs in my 20s and 30s. But it's only in the past couple of years that I've been studying choreography more closely. And most recently, my bucket list Fly Girl routine from In Love and Color that I posted on Instagram at Tananarive Due if you want to check it out. and also Rhythm Nation, by the way. So this year, for the first time, hubby Stephen Barnes and I went to a dance studio for a live hip hop class, and we had a blast. Dancing together is now a much more intentional part of our lives, a new chapter in our story. Dancing, like writing, brings me joy. And while I wish I had embraced dancing more seriously in the years when I actually might have auditioned to be a fly girl, in many ways I feel like dancing found me right on time. Because these times we are all living through in 2026 require what Alice Walker called furious dancing. Or to paraphrase queer activist and author Dan Savage, we buried our friends in the morning, we protested in the afternoon, and we danced at night. The dance kept us in the fight because it was the dance we were fighting for. And as we sit here gathered at the 61st Annual Nebula Awards, all of us practicing furious dancing in our own ways, it's important for us to remember that this is what we are fighting for artists, for readers, for humanity. Joy helps me weather the struggle, and the struggle forces me to fully inhabit and appreciate the joy, because the only lasting truth is change, and we are only here on this fragile spinning rock for a breath of time. But joy is right now, this moment. So now, as your Toastmaster, I propose that you raise your glasses for a toast, and while I'll lead it, I'd like you all to toast together on the count of 3 to joy. And toast with as much joy as you have felt anger or pain or loss. Toast as if we together are casting a spell, because believe me when I tell you, we are. 1, 2, 3, to joy! All right, and now please join me in welcoming the SFWA President, Kate Ristow.
Thank you, Tananarive. What a joy it is to be with you all tonight, celebrating the best of our genre, from sci-fi to fantasy to horror and romantasy, and to all things weird and wild and wonderful. All right, let's get some hands in the air. Where are my poets? Woo! Script writers. Game writers. Comics. Kidlit crew. Where's the Kidlit crew? I see you. Novelists. Novellaists. Novelettists. And short fiction writers. Readers. And who hasn't raised their hand yet and just really wants to raise their hand? Thank you, thank you, thank you. And who wants to raise their hand again? My friends, we are so lucky to get to live, work, and create in this time of immeasurable possibility. Being your SFWA president is an unbelievable honor and a particular kind of joy. Because SFWA has a mission to support, defend, and advocate for writers, and like Tananarive said, these times demand action. In Portland, I live and work just down the street from an ICE facility, and what I've learned over and over and over and over this year is that we can't sit silent while our rights, our friends, and our physical and creative freedoms are taken away. We've read this story before, and we are living it again. And along with the fight for the core freedoms and basic human rights that we all deserve, I've seen the hard work happening in our industry to change and challenge, to uproot and redefine. We are breaking and building and breaking again. I've seen it in the stories that push us to think deeper. I've seen it in poems that challenge form and convention. And I've also seen it in the work of our community here. This last year, I saw authors pushing hard for better contracts. It wasn't just about moral rights. It was about kill fees, unfair industry practices, and writers not getting paid? Whatever. We are fighting for your rights. We are here. You should get paid for the work that you do. Seriously. That's why ISIS and I went to Washington last year. It's why SFWA joined the lawsuit against Anthropic. It's why we signed an amicus brief against book bans with 9 major literary peers. It's why we take on these difficult conversations with key industry actors like Must Reads, and why Victoria Strauss keeps fighting against scams and schemes and pitfalls through Writer Beware. It's why, even now, amid this weekend's celebrations, we're working with SFWA's lawyers to prepare for the next big legal campaign in service to defense of writers like you. There is so much work to do, and we are here to do that work with writers and for you. Our staff has borne the brunt of the work this year. Let's take a second to acknowledge Isis, Russell, Maggie, and Misha. Russell dove into contracts and operations while Isis worked on professional development programming, and Misha redefined membership support, and Maggie turned our website into a place of power and possibility. The team behind the scenes grew so much this year as we fought for our community and for our peers and for our careers. For those of you online tonight, you've already met our volunteers in the chat roll and you've seen their graphics rolling by. In person, they maybe handed you a program or shared their expertise on a panel this afternoon. Throughout the year, you'll find our volunteers in committee meetings and open mics, sharing their poems and sharing their stories. They build the genre one Zoom meeting at a time. I'm making it sound super glamorous, but sometimes doing the work means digging in. It means talking openly about the challenges of marketing and alternate funding streams. It means sharing concerns about an industry practice, no matter how long it's been going on. It means providing practical guidance to the next generation of writers, even as you receive mentorship of your own for your next steps in your career. For the volunteers, in person and online, raise your hand and we will raise the roof. Volunteers, raise your hands. I would like to take one more moment tonight to honor one of our past presidents who gave so much of her time, energy, passion, and compassion to SFWA. You will see her on the stage later tonight, but now and later, please give a round of applause to Kat Rambo. Sometimes the biggest battles we fight are the everyday moments where we choose to get out of bed, where we open up our laptop, or, just even step out the door, where we choose to step up and step out into a world that devalues our work and claims that a prompt can do better than the folks we are honoring here tonight. Fuck that noise. Nope. You all can give it a thumbs down. We can be that dorky because it is that dorky. Our legacy, our memory is not going to be written by an LLM. It's going to be written on the backs of napkins and in our morning pages. It's going to be written in pen and tapped out on our keyboards. It's going to be written by us. Us. I'm here, we're here. As we dig into trauma and we spit back against the bullshit, I'm here for all of us. I'm here for your story, and 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 your story. We all are here for your stories. So please, please, please keep creating them. Please. And one of my great honors as SFWA president is naming our SFWA grandmaster. And as I looked toward our 61st year, I didn't even have a doubt in my mind, not one. I knew we needed someone who stood on the precipice of a new century and started building. Someone who broke down the bones and the tyranny and the genre that wasn't just serving all of us, and she forced us to create into the chaos of a beautiful new world. N.K. Jemisin is that author. From the stillness to sky to the boroughs of New York City, she brings her worlds to life, shaking and remaking the industry and our expectations of the genre. Layer upon layer upon layer upon layer, Jemisin builds her worlds. Setting comes to life like striations in the geological strata. Characters crystallize and harden like citrine, agate, ruby, amethyst. Amethyst. Jemisin builds up and chisels down her world, sometimes shaking them to their core so her characters can rise up, renewed. To put it simply, she is a master of the craft. We don't write in a vacuum. We write in a world of complexity and trauma. Jemisin helps us hold a mirror up to our darkest desires, our deepest desires, our darkest fears, all of it. We want to live in a better world, but if we don't, what stories will we tell? How will we confront history and our possible futures? We got a guide. Jemisin shows us that storytelling is not just an escape. It's a powerful tool for engagement in our own reality. Through her work, she reminds us that speculative fiction can be both a space for resistance and a landscape for transformation. I am proud to honor Jemisin for her invaluable contributions to the current state and the future life of speculative fiction. She is building better worlds, imagining different futures. She's helping us fight for the world we want to live in right now. So please help me in welcoming to the stage our newest Grandmaster, N.K. Jemisin.
I guess I'll stand on the box. Pardon me. Light. That's better. I discovered that there was a teleprompter a few days ago, and they asked me if I wanted to use the teleprompter, and I said my speech wasn't finished. I finished the speech about 2 hours ago, so no teleprompter for me. Greetings, fellow writers of the Torment Nexus. I want to give you a warning for potentially offensive language, including shit, fuck, woke, and inclusivity. Part 1. I did not want to be here at first. When SFWA President Kate Ristow said that they wanted to make me Grandmaster, my first reaction was, I'm not old enough. As far as I knew, becoming Grandmaster was a Lifetime Achievement Award. I'm only 53. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm just hitting my stride. So I told her, thanks, I'm deeply flattered, but please don't put me in the creative grave yet. Try again in 20 years. Fortunately, Kate talked me down. She basically made her case by throwing a lot of my own career-long complaints about SFF right back at me. That's what that smell is. Sorry, I set something on fire. Is that okay? Okay. It's fine. It's fine. Everything's fine. Can I move this? Yes. This is in the way. Okay. Thank you so much. That's all right. Okay, thank you. That's better. There's a little light on the podium. There was some tape over the light. The tape did not like the light. Okay, so fortunately, Kate talked me down. She basically made her point by throwing a lot of my own career-long complaints about SFF right back at me. And she was right. If I'm calling for change, I have to speak when a platform presents itself. So thank you, SFWA presidents, present and past, for making me the 47th Grand Master of the Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers Association. It is a true and mind-blowing honor. Pardon me, my goodness. It is a true and mind-blowing honor that I honestly never expected to earn. But now that somebody has once again given me a microphone, I'm gonna run my mouth. Let us speak first about tradition. I am often called radical for the ways I push against the SFF status quo. I'm not, because I am at least old enough to see some value in tradition. For a lot of us, me included, the gateway drug for SFF was classic science fiction, with its sense of wonder and so cool ideas and apparent welcome to all. There is an inherent optimism in the idea that our species will someday reach the stars. Right now, as drug-addled billionaires systematically dismantle our space program, and even our ability to educate new scientists, that is very much in question. We could use some of that old school hope. Classic stories of interstellar travel have obvious implications for the future of education and technological progress, but they also predict that we'll actually last long enough to get there, a thing that is not at all certain in these times. That we will overcome our petty nationalisms and cowardly natalisms, enough to survive and maybe even thrive. We need this. We need to believe we'll get better, because without belief, we won't even try. But there are those in our field who complain that classic science fiction and classic medieval European fantasy are somehow under threat. Too many women who talk, maybe. Too many writers and readers who want something new, like maybe medieval Malian fantasy or a space adventure in which all the black and brown characters are actually treated with equal respect. But there are still plenty of stories in the classic mode being written and read and bought by Hollywood. Whole brand new space adventures that haven't been misunderstood by some tech bro. Yet. We've got Murderbot. We got the three-body problem. We've got The Martian and Project Hail Mary. And there will someday be as many Game of Thrones adaptations as there are ports of doom. So there is no threat to classical SFF. The complaint is a dog whistle, of course. Propaganda. There's no rational argument in it because that's not the point. The point is to frighten people into rejecting social progress. There is value in tradition until it becomes a chain wrapped around a child. To people who feel that there is a threat to tradition, anything is better than growth, even death. Side note, I am told that personal anecdotes are expected of and tolerated in Grandmasters. So, I started an anime con with my friends back in the 90s. Don't know if any of you knew that. Shoujo Con. Anybody remember it? What? A few people do? Wow. We were going to make a con aimed at the marginalized fans of that genre, the people of color and the women and the NBs and the neurodivergents and all the rest. We were going to kick to the curb all the anime fandom traditions that conveniently made it harder for people like us to attend or enjoy ourselves. So I summoned a team of magical girls, my friends, not all of whom were girls, plus new staff from among people who joined our startup discussions. We got to work. We did some really innovative stuff. Most cons relied on regional staff at that time, but we did staff meetings via IRC, the Usenet era equivalent of Zoom, so that anyone anywhere in the world could participate. We picked a dingy little hotel near a major regional hub of subways and buses and commuter rails in Newark. We funded it with eBay auctions of rare swag and uncensored things. Anyway, we raised something like $17,000. Now, there was always a small contingent of people who pushed back against a particular innovation from the very beginning. They could never really explain why they had a problem with being easily reached by the biggest and broadest possible audience. They just didn't like it. They kept pushing for the con to move upstate to a local hotel, to a hotel reachable only by car in a town that was much whiter and wealthier than Newark. And SFF Con had successfully used the same venue for years, but so why couldn't we stick to that tried and true site? Newark was so dirty, they kept saying. We might attract too much of the wrong audience. This group fought hard to move us to that site, but for the first 2 years, they couldn't get enough support from other staff. That was when I was in charge. I had a co-leader. Despite their dire predictions, the first year went beautifully. We had 1,300 attendees, if I recall. We recouped our costs and made enough to throw an even bigger con the next year, which also made a whole bunch of money. We were on our way. But after 2 years, my co-chair and I were exhausted, so we stepped down. The new con leaders ran it well enough for another year or so. Then the tradition defenders took over. They had converted enough people to their side in that time. They immediately moved the con to car-driving white peopleville. And the next con got a fraction of the attendees. They couldn't even pay for the hotel afterward, I'm told. The con died sometime after. I'm not sure when. My entire career has been plagued by histrionic claims that I personally am destroying SFF through my work. Too much politics, too many fancy literary devices, too many big words, too much healthy, loving sex. But if it wasn't these things, it would be something else. Hearing claims like this has been a pretty common experience for any marginalized writer over the last 60 or 70 years. I'm counting from the start of Chip Delaney's career, so probably longer than that. We're all so loud about the discrimination we face, too visible in our differences, too suspiciously successful. And unfortunately, the whistlers have managed to convince many otherwise sensible people that people like me are an actual threat. These people are whom I'm speaking to right now. Speculative fiction has always been home to the literary avant-garde and to rejectors of the status quo and to progressive activists. W.E.B. Du Bois was one of us. Mary Shelley, a feminist raised by an anarchist, is our progenitor. We've been woke since day one. Oh. So what's got you so aflutter, tradition defenders? Cooties? I sure hope a think tank is paying some of you. Don't tell me you're being this foolish for free. At this point, I don't really care why some people seem hell-bent on protecting SFF to death. What matters is truth. That this space contains trans writers and immigrant writers and Muslim writers and Jewish writers and disabled writers and writers from every other group that's been accused of doing damage to SFF by their existence. We have always been here, and we're pretty good at cutting chains. We aren't destroying anything. We built this, and we are not going anywhere. I'm not done. Part 2. 3 parts. But here's another thing that we should start to accept, that SFF is an actual art form. I know, right? It's strange to think of unicorns and aliens in the same sentence as art. But if Le Guin and Machado and Marquez aren't enough to convince you, if the homages paid to our genre by Miyazaki and the Wachowski sisters and Beyonce mean nothing, if the critics of our genre like Farrah Mendelssohn and Emily St. James and Abigail Nussbaum don't make it clear enough, let me put this more clearly. Art is a means of reflecting the world through a mirror, darkly or otherwise, to reveal hidden truths. Art can have its own language, as ours does. World building, magic realism, mythopoeicism. Art can be bad. Bad art is useful, if only in that it helps define good art. Art can have popular, oh goodness, I should have put page numbers on both sides. Art can have popular appeal. Art can be personal. The fact is that one human being can have histories and experiences that are wildly different from another's, 180 degrees apart even, and yet we still find the same amount of comfort in the line and the tune and the word. Art is human. We've all seen literary critics snub SFF as mere genre fiction, as if 1,000 stories about depressed middle-aged white men doesn't constitute a genre in itself. We've all heard, as Tananarive mentioned, stories about creative writing teachers who accept any genre except SFF. There is a pervasive belief in our society that SFF is only good for predicting future technologies and entertaining children. We've seen Booker and Pulitzer winners come to play on our ground, convinced that only they are capable of using SFF to its full potential. We really need better PR. Sadly, some of us have internalized the opinions of SFF's detractors. We believe it's impossible for us to reflect the breadth of the human condition. Even to try is elitism or grubbing for diversity points. We should just stick to ray guns and white dudes, am I right? Those of us who aren't listening, those of us who aren't listening to people who despise us, know that art is a fantastic medium for exploring the human condition. Better even than literary realism. Yeah, I said it. They're engaging with who we are. We're engaging with who we could be. I've been very fortunate in my career. An amazing agent believed in me, even after my first novels were roundly rejected. An editor of color at one of the big five took a chance on me, and it certainly paid off for them. But these days, the publishers are also listening to the haters. They're less willing to take chances on certain up-and-coming grandmasters, such as the people in this room. How many other me's are out there, self-publishing and struggling to stand out, because the big publishing houses are afraid of offending the book banners? Those people don't even read. The problem with internalized self-hatred is that you stop trying to be better. You accept the limitations others impose on you. You take pride in your own ignorance and timidity, because at least that's an identity, a support group. You attack yourself, or in this case, your own genre. Part 3. It's time we started recognizing and valuing what we've already got. That means listening to the people within our genre who are offering critique. There is nothing detrimental to SFF about Black writers starting their own magazine, or women writers demanding the firing of a sexually harassing editor, or poor writers requesting scholarships to attend events. That's feedback. That's something we need to listen to. That's how we get better. Book talk is not our enemy. It's full of drama because have you seen the internet? But it's also one of the best ways to understand our younger audience. We should welcome the romantasy writers without sneering at them. Romance is a genre that also has a lot of detractors, but they've still managed to become the best-selling genre in America, bringing in $1.4 billion in annual revenue. They clearly know things that we need to learn. We've got a deep, rich history as a genre that is far more inclusive than a lot of us acknowledge. We've got amazing writers, innovators of form and concept, who can run rings around any Pulitzer winner. Those writers have chosen to do their work here, amid the magic users and the menaces from beyond the stars, because they know this genre's potential too. Right now, our society is trying desperately to unfuck itself. We can help with that. Some of us are good at predicting social development, or as good at predicting social development as technological. Read Butler's Parable of the Sower, as Tananarive also referenced, if you haven't, and realize that she wrote that over 30 years ago. We need to acknowledge empathy as a valid and valuable component of what we do. We need to do a lot more, but then maybe we'll be able to write Don't Create the Torment Nexus in a way that is dumbass Nazi-proof. There is no good reason for SFF to remain the small, niche genre that it is. We can be so much better than we are, fellow writers. We can make the world better, too. So once again, thank you for giving me this platform. I am humbled by the recognition. But I think I got here because throughout my career, I have just wanted things to be better. I have shouted that at the sky. I have wept over it. I have dedicated all my creative power to it. I am glad to be acknowledged for this, but I'm gladder still to realize how many people are shouting alongside me, adding their power to the whole. We are changing, late but better than never. The chains are coming off. Let's see how much we can grow. Done.
How do I close it? Thank you. Can I leave this here? Okay. How do I carry it? Okay, I'm gonna have to leave this here. Thank you, Kate, and then congratulations again to this year's Grandmaster, N.K. Jemisin. What a powerful speech. Oh, my goodness. And now for the Brandbury Nebula Award. The award will be presented by author, filmmaker, and SFWA Director at Large, Day Al-Mohammed.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dale Muhammad. I'm a SFWA Director at Large, and I am super proud to highlight the nominees for the Ray Brandbury Nebula Award for Outstanding Dramatic Presentation. Named in honor of writer Ray Brandbury, this award's kind of existed intermittently since 1992 and annually since about 2009. And it's to recognize the influence and impact of science fiction and fantasy writing in other media. Things are growing and changing. We want to recognize that. And in 2019, it formally became a Nebula Award. Now, since its inception, more than 100 different works have been nominated, and this includes individual episodes of television, whole television series, there's whole seasons, films, independent and studio, and even podcasts. Yeah, and just in case you're wondering, and yes, I did look it up, the very first Bradbury was awarded to Terminator 2 Judgment Day. All right? I won't say any more in case there's spoilers. So I'm super excited for this year's nominees. They are just fantastic. You know, we're living in 2026, right? We heard so much already. It's a world that's so different than we imagined. And we all continue to create, continue to write, and explore what is, what isn't, and what could be, right? Science fiction, and this is Bradbury, right, is always the art of the possible, never the impossible. And Bradbury himself actually wrote several stories set in 2026, right? So April 2026, The Long Years. August 2026, There Will Come Soft Rains. And October 2026, The Million Year Picnic. Now, the first of these actually did become a script for television. And I definitely won't give you any spoilers on that one. So I talk a lot about Bradbury, not just because this award was named for him, which of course I'm going to have to do it because it is named for him, right? But because he actually was personally my first introduction to science fiction and fantasy. It was actually the television movie of his story, All Summer in a Day. And that story and its dramatic presentation just turned me on to something. And it was powerful, and it was evocativeness, and it caught me, and it held me, and it haunts me. And of course, you know what? That's what good writing is supposed to do, right? Another Bradbury quote here. If there is no feeling, there cannot be great art, right? And so I do want to, see, I'm going to fill this with quotes. I said I'm going to put as many as I could in here, right? But this last one I think is particularly important for where we are now, right? Science fiction is any idea that occurs in the head and doesn't exist yet, but soon will, and will change everything for everybody, and nothing will ever be the same again. That's who we are, that's what we do, and that's who we honor here tonight. And with that, the finalists for the Ray Brandbury Nebula Award for Outstanding Dramatic Presentation are...
by Ryan Coogler. Murderbot, Season 1, by Chris Weitz and Paul Weitz. K-Pop Demon Hunters, by Danya Jimenez, Hannah McMacken, and Maggie Kang. Pluribus, Season 1, by Vince Gilligan. Superman, by James Gunn. Severance, Chikai Bardo, by Dan Erickson and Mark Friedman.
All right. I have the fancy envelope. Hey, Phil, can you read it for me? What's that? Oh, so Phil tells me it is Murderbot Season 1.
Murderbot is an amazing series. It's an amazing book, and we are so proud to accept this award on behalf of Chris and Paul Weitz. Thank you all.
Please welcome to the stage Hugo, Nebula, and World Fantasy Award nominated writer Benjamin Rosenbaum.
Look at that, a teleprompter. A game, according to the philosopher Si Chi Nguyen, is art made of agency. The way a symphony is art made of sound, or a sculpture is art made of shape. Playing a game, we step out of our muddy and indistinct and deadly serious outer world, where our mistakes touch our real lives, and many of our choices feel like they don't matter, or they matter too much, and into another world where our choices and actions are thrillingly important, and yet we are in fact safe from their consequences. Some games like checkers or tag are narratively spare, but the games in this category are narratively rich and lush, full of lying kings, stolen crowns, living canvases, void-warding everblooms, failed superheroes, and vengeful chthonic witch goddesses. Games like these do not just tell you stories, they let you inhabit stories as agents. They give you stories as worlds to explore. They wrap you in story. For a game to transport you into its parallel ludic universe, to enthrall and teach you, you must slip into what Nguyen calls the game's agential skeleton. In other words, you must adopt its goals as your own. You must care what happens. The game's ideas and settings and characters and events must seduce you, powerfully enough to rewire what you care about and strive for, if only while you're playing. The finalists for the Nebula Award for Game Writing have done just that. They are
Prince by Tonda Ross. Claire Obscure, Expedition 33 by Jennifer Svedberg Yen and Guillaume Broche. Spire, Surge, and Sea by Stuart C. Baker. Hades 2 by Greg Kasavin. Hollow Knight, Silksong by Ari Gibson and William Pellin. Dispatch by Pierre Choret, Susie Matson, Ashley Jeffalone, Chris Rebert, and Chad Reines.
And the winner is Claire Obscure, Expedition 33.
This here. Wow, I had to pause a second because I wasn't sure it was actually us. So this was, sorry, I'm shaking right now. Oh, okay. I have to unlock my phone because that's where my speech is. So I apologize beforehand because I wrote this right before the ceremony. So I'm sorry, it's a bit random. I was at lunch with a few of the finalists, and we were joking about writing a poem as an acceptance speech in honor of the, the new poetry category. And as usual, I love taking a joke way too far. And that's why a certain event happens at the end of Act 1 in our game. If you know, you know. So yes, here's my poem. The poets, they said, write a limerick. And I thought, sure, why not? My little SFWA gimmick. I just learned how to pronounce that today. I'm submitting this next year for best poem, by the way. But what I really want to say is, this year's been insane for great writing and games. And what the frack do you mean we just won a Nebula? Oh my God. But in all seriousness, this was a stacked year for narrative and games, and it is a deep, deep honor to be nominated alongside such great writers. And it is personally very exciting to me to see my fellow nominees push the boundaries on narrative in interactive media, where the medium allows us to use our words in new and interesting ways. In our game, you're unraveling the mystery of an entity known as the Paintress, and mild spoiler alert, in the backdrop, there's a war between the painters and the writers. So I think our fans are definitely getting a kick out of us being up here, completely surrounded in a room full of powerful writers. Spoiler alert, they kill everyone. I'm just kidding, just kidding. But in the real world, that's what we need. It's what we've always needed, and what we need now more than ever. The world needs writers of all stripes and colors. Writing is what allows us to understand each other and to understand ourselves, to open our minds, to learn empathy and possibility. I swear I wrote this before everybody else's amazing, wonderful speeches, but yes, empathy and possibility. There's a line in our game, great art is both window and mirror, and that's a power that belongs to everyone in this room and beyond. So it is truly an honor to be here to celebrate the work of everyone in speculative fiction. Thank you so, so much. Thank you.
We are so proud to welcome comics to the Nebulas.
We've all been influenced by comics and comics writing, right?
Living in a rural area, I couldn't make the trip to big cities to feed my reading addiction very often, especially before I was old enough to drive. Fortunately, comics were kind enough to come to me in the mail as often as I could get my greedy hands on enough money to add or renew a subscription.
As a kid, I read a lot of the Hulk. I read X-Men, and I read all of the X-Men spin-offs. I loved it. It was formative for me.
When I was a kid, Superman taught me how to be brave. When I was a teenager, the X-Men taught me how to be queer in a world full of baselines.
As a parent, I read Atomic Robo, and Atomic Robo was something that my kids loved and I loved, and we really connected over it, and it was fantastic. So, like, comics have been there all along.
Now that I'm an adult, comics teach me how to fight for the future that I know we all deserve.
I owe comics a lot for being my lifeline to new ideas, and especially for teaching me new ways of thinking. New heroes, old villains, costume changes, and the rare occasion where something actually stayed changed permanently. It didn't matter. It was all fuel to a creative mind desperate for materials to absorb, internalize, and later serve as a catalyst to produce my own messages to the world.
These stories continue to transform the genre.
Writing comics it takes a different skill set.
They frame their stories non-verbally. They break their words into story captions and speech bubbles, even sound effects.
There are so many elements that have to align, from the writing to the editing, the art, the colors, the inks, the lettering on the page.
For me, comics are this great collaborative art form.
Comics are immersive.
If done right, creating comics is like pure professional and personal joy.
Nobody does it better than comic writers.
Almost like comics is love. Like if you get the right community and you get the right people, you're making stories that feel really important to you.
They free us to enjoy the stories, to experience the worlds, the magic and the heroes and the villains. In that way, and so many more, comic writers have been exemplars of fantastic storytelling.
Comics continue to teach me to this day.
And comics are teaching me too.
So, whether you're reading your first comic or putting a sleeve on another collectible, the SFWA board and the Comics Committee are proud to welcome you to the Nebula Awards. Welcome, comics creators, comics readers, and comics fans. We're happy you're here.
Please welcome to the stage Image Award winner and New York Times bestselling author, Stephen Barnes.
Greetings. One of my first and earliest memories of dynamic visual storytelling was in comic books. I could own a comic book, and I had many hundreds of them, including Hulk and Spider-Man #1. If I hadn't lost them, I could have paid my daughter's college education with web slinging and hulking out. People mocked me for that, for loving the Fantastic Four, Tales from the Crypt, and EC's Tales of Rockets and Monsters. And that was where I first saw Ray Brandbury's There Will Come Soft Rains, a tale of nuclear holocaust told with the most delicate and heartbreaking of images. I knew what comics could be, but didn't have a way to defend my love from parents and teachers. Then I read Scott McCloud's amazing Understanding Comics, in which he detailed the 6 steps of creativity: idea or purpose, form, idiom, structure, craft, and surface. And then, for the first time, I saw what comics really were: an art form as valid as any other. I later had the chance to write for Batman, and I took it dead seriously. This was my chance to repay a hero who had helped me understand what it was to be a man, who inspired me to stand with honor, to fight with courage and creativity, to look beyond the surface, and even to turn fear into power. However you found your path in life, I'm betting that many of you, perhaps most, loved comics even if you couldn't explain why. All there is of art is speaking of what we are as humans and what is the world that humans see. And the artists and writers who create stories so simple that a 5-year-old can read them, and a more mature man can still read them and smile and shake his head at what the Kirbys and Starankos and countless others created from their own lives and process are and always have been deserving of our respect and admiration and love. This award, finally, speaks to that great path without which my childhood would have been impoverished, and I could not be the man who stands here today saying, let us love and honor storytelling in all its forms. It is one of the most human things that we have. The finalists for the very first Nebula Award for Comics, Is there going to be a... Yes, there is.
By Tom King. Mary Shelley's School for Monsters, The Killing Stone, by Jessica Mason. The Stone Shore Register, by G. Willow Wilson. Strange Bedfellows, by Ariel Reese. The Flip Side, by Jason Walls. Carmilla, Volume 3, The Eternal, by Amy Chu. Second Shift, by Kit Anderson. Fish Flies, by Jeff Lemire.
And the winner of the Nebula Award for comics, the very first one, Mary Shelley's School for Monsters, The Killing Stone.
So I truly wasn't expecting to win this award. I did write a beat sheet though, just in case. I'm not great with bests, but I love recognition for artists and writers. The nominees this year in the comics category are some of my heroes. Amy Chu, I just love her series. She's here. And I just love that they're being recognized in a new place. And there are just so many, there's at least 20 other comics I can think of that are amazing this year. I am not gonna cry, guys. So I'm just so impressed to be in their presence. And I wanna move on to my team. And I wanna share this award with everyone who worked on the comic, from my editor, Michael Judd, to the proofreader, Katrina Rotes, to the design team, the letterer, Matt Krotzer, who is an amazing letterer, and finally, Anna Weischek, who is my partner in storytelling. Her amazing illustrations brought this world to life. I couldn't have done it without her. So I just think that's what I love about comics, is that collaboration, that joy, that beauty that you don't know what's gonna happen. I always cry at everything, so don't worry about it. And so I am just incredibly proud to be in the among those books that I loved every single one of them, and I probably nominated most of them. And then I talked about the team, but I have to talk about Mary Shelley for a second. I was really glad that N.K. Jemisin mentioned her. She was such a trailblazer. But what was very important to me from the beginning of the story was what she was as a child. She didn't have a mother. Well, she had a mother, but what always touched me about her was that she went to that graveyard with her mother's books, her radical mother's books, and she read her mom's books and she was trying to find that connection. And it was so sad and so beautiful. And that is what inspired Mary Shelley School for Monsters, is it wasn't, I love Frankenstein, don't get me wrong, but it was that connection. And I'm lucky that I had my mother, and this is where I'll cry. My mom, when I was young, taught me that science fiction was for women, right? And that was really important, and she took me to the library and did all this. And so I'm glad I had her, and I'm sad that Mary Shelley didn't have hers. And so to Deb Mason, this is a little bit for you. And then I'm gonna stop talking about my mom or I'll cry more. And then I just want to say to everyone else, and a lot about what Mary Shelley is about, is it's for the outsiders, the misfits, the misunderstood monsters, and the rebels. And I think you're all here. And I'm grateful to be part of that community. And I want to thank the comics community for letting me in as a newcomer later in life. And I also think that that's what this is about. That's about what this is about more than it is about the award. It's about the community that we have created here. And I think comics does that really well, but I also think science fiction and fantasy does it really well. So I want to thank all of you. And finally, before I forget, because I almost did, the comics committee did amazing work, and I just want to shout them out as well. And I think that's it. Thank you so much.
Please welcome to the stage past president of the Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers Association, Mary Robinette Kowal.
Community shapes our genre. Without it, the Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers Association is a bunch of disassociated writers sitting alone in their homes. It is scattered individuals who battle the publishing landscape in isolation without the resources or the benefit of shared wisdom. It is for this reason that SFWA established the Kate Wilhelm Solstice Award in 2008 to honor a person who has made significant contributions to this community, sustaining science fiction, fantasy, and related genres. This year's recipient has been a staple of the community for literally decades. David Langford holds the all-time record for the number of Hugos with 29 wins out of 55 nominations. I would like to know what kind of coffee table he is building with these. He publishes the Ansible Newzine and writes for the astonishing labor of love that is the Science Fiction Encyclopedia, which he has helmed with John Clute since 2011. As John says, if you count the number of emails we've exchanged, we may be the closest friends in world history. Honored to think so. Honored to think of myself as his partner in the Encyclopedia of Science Fiction, which most of the emails are apparently about. For 20 years, he has been the larger half of SFE Enterprise Online, shaping and maintaining and modernizing the thing. As we've moved from 2 million words to 7,500,000, during it all, he's made some of the funniest jokes ever and the wisest, one and only. 7,500,000 words on science fiction. David. David did a back of the envelope calculation that indicates that if they did a print edition of SFE's current contents, it would fill 18 volumes at the maximum print size of 800 pages. Come on. The Science Fiction Encyclopedia is a resource used by educators and editors and fans to explore the breadth and depth of science fiction. And let's be honest, by multiple writers who cannot remember what they wrote or when. I know who you are, because it's me. If you hop into any entry, you can follow links to other entries and see the connections that each work and writer has made on the rest of the genre. The point is that David Langford doesn't just build community, he catalogs it. He catalogs us. It is my very great honor to present the Kate Wilhelm Solstice Award to David Langford for his seriously significant contributions to the genre. Accepting on his behalf is Gay Haldeman.
Imagine I'm 6'5", I think, and have a heavy British accent. This is what he sent us. There's a famous story about a perpetual motion machine exhibited to awestruck crowds in New York in 1813. Unfortunately, one visitor was an engineer who noticed that the great wheel that turned forever seemed a little bit jerky in its motion. He started removing bits of woodwork to reveal that the miracle of science was driven by an endless bout, belt leading to a back attic where an old man with a long beard was found turning a crank. Speaking as the cranky old guy in the back room of the science fiction encyclopedia, I must say I'm thrilled to be exposed and outed like this. It's a huge and unexpected honor to join the ranks of past solstice winners. I even have connections with a few of them. My small press has published lots of uncollected criticism by Algis Budrys, who was remembered in this award's first year. I was beta reader for many Discworld novels by my friend Terry Pratchett. Another old friend, John Clute, is co-editor of the encyclopedia and patiently puts up with the jerky motions of the crank in the back room. Thank you all very much.
And congratulations again to David Langford. Tonight, we celebrate the work and impact of creators across our community, but tonight it's also fitting that we honor those that our community has lost this past year. We are grateful to have known them, and we are forever changed by having walked with them. Friends, we remember you.
I won't need a stool. Before I get into this, I just want to mention a couple of things. I'm a middle-aged white guy from Nebraska who's written a lot about art. And it's my honor to be here tonight with N.K. Jemisin and Tananarive Due. I also want to mention that two of the awards we've given out tonight, poetry and game writing, those Nebula trophies are going to appear in a movie this November by J.J. Abrams called The Great Beyond. It is a gift to be speaking with all of you tonight. I've been a member of SFWA since the late 90s and a volunteer and a board member and a past president. And since I rarely get the chance to speak to so many SFWA members at one time, there's something that's been on my mind since I returned to SFWA as a staff member in late 2024. It's the most common question I've gotten all these years. Why should I join SFWA? What do I get? And my answer has always been the same. SFWA isn't about what you get. It's about what you give. Organizationally, SFWA has many goals: defense, advocacy, education. But what makes it truly special are the volunteers and members that help create a community that lifts each other up. We cannot achieve our goals without that community, writers who care about each other, a writerly community of grace. If SFWA is meant to be a community of grace, Gay Haldeman embodies that idea. Her warmth, her welcome to new members, including myself, oh so many years ago, her kindness and respect to every soul, these are the acts I mean by a community of grace. I doubt she remembers it, but at the Nebula conference in LA in 2009, there were a number of members quite upset with me as I was making significant changes to SFWA. Gay came to my defense, providing details that illuminated what I was doing and why it was important. At the time, I needed the help, and I'm still grateful for it today. And if SFWA is about what you give, Gay's service as SFWA Ombudsman has been exemplary. From sharing information, offering advice, or just providing a sympathetic ear to members, volunteers, committees, officers, and even broken down past presidents like myself. She represents a wonderful source of knowledge, strength, and empathy woven together with a deep understanding of SFWA's history. The work of an ombudsman is held in confidence, of course, but at SFWA, something I hear a lot in my role is a single refrain: thank God Gay was there. It is my distinct pleasure to honor Gay Haldeman tonight with the 2026 Kevin O'Donnell Jr. Service to SFWA Award. Gay, you are in many ways the beating heart, the exemplar of grace in our community. Thank you from all of us for your service to SFWA.
I have to stand on the stool to see the teleprompter. That's interesting.
Look at that, you're almost as tall as I am.
Yeah, I'm not David Langford anymore. Thank you. I appreciate your introduction. That was great. I want to thank SFWA for this honor. It never occurred to me that I'd worked hard enough to win this award. Though I have been involved in SFWA, not a member until recently, for about 55 years. That's a long time. It's hard to imagine, since I think I'm only 30 years old. Science fiction and fantasy in their many forms have been my life since I met Joe Haldeman, Joe, my husband, and he gave me my first science fiction book, Arthur C. Clarke's Expedition to Earth, excuse me, in 1961. We discovered fandom together in 1963 when we found out about the Worldcon in Washington, D.C., and attended. After Joe returned from Vietnam, a bit the worse for wear, fandom was a refuge for us both. When he started selling stories, SFWA was a life changer. We were helped along by so many people we met through the organization. Goodness. He sold his first science fiction novel, The Forever War, at an SFWA party after his agent had told him nobody wanted it. What a day. Robert Heinlein said to pay it forward, and that's what we both tried to do over the years. I never thought there was an award for doing this. Many thanks to SFWA and to Joe and to the many folks who've made our lives so much richer. I love you all.
Thank you, Gay. Thank you for that. And now to present the first Nebula Award for a poem. Yes. Please welcome author, poet, and SFWA Director at Large, Rika Aoki.
I would first like to call out the SFWA Poetry Committee, whose tireless work helped make possible this first Nebula Award for Poem. Here are some of their thoughts in their own words. Gwen Carfinkel writes, "We've always been here. Tonight we lift our voices. Hear the poems shine." Wendy Van Camp writes, "Nebula Award. Creating visibility, now recognizing poets as legitimate alongside novels and stories." Mary Soon Lee, now for the first time, on poetry's old branches, nebula blossoms. And Brian Garrison writes, shipwrecked, together on this mossy rock, a poem is a friendly squawk. Not an answer, not a question, but it can leave a deep impression. Now I'm going to be inspired a little bit by our wonderful Grandmaster, and I'm going to go slightly off script. I stand before you as a trans person, queer person, and I want to call out to all the trans and queer writers sitting here today and watching us tonight. Because we have always been here. And you know what? So is poetry. Before the beginning, poetry was. Before the pen took to paper, before even the written word, poetry was. The stuff of the Vedas, of Gilgamesh, of the Nihon Shoki, the hymn to Amun. Starlight, star bright, first star I see tonight. When we look at the stars, why do we experience the heavens? When we rocket ourselves spaceward, why do we name our missions Mercury, Gemini, Apollo, and Artemis? I wish I may, I wish I might, have the wish I wish tonight. In poetry, we glean the unknowable. In poetry, our language grows beyond escaping danger or hunting down prey. Through metaphor, allegory, symbolism, we craft myth and meter. We craft the Bhagavad Gita and the Big Bang, the Kalevala and the fine structure, constant poetry of cosmologists caught in dark energy's pull, of physicists charmed by the strangeness of quarks, poetry, of the writers gathered here tonight, in our gods and our demons and our magics, in our starships and star systems, in the hearts and minds of our readers, poetry has always been with us. And yet there is something poetic about recognizing poets and poetry tonight. Shakespeare wrote, "Sometimes too hot the eye of heaven shines, and often is his gold complexion dimmed." Tonight, as many of us wonder, what hellscape have we gotten ourselves into? What night is falling upon our world? There seems no better time to invoke the language of creation, of dragons, of let there be light. And let us honor those poets whose lines seldom make bestseller lists, whose lines are too often overlooked by a world that so desperately could use them tonight. For our first ever Nebula Award for Poem, the finalists are
Care for Michael by Mari Ness. Though You Always Are by Linda P. Addison and Jamal Hodge. The Morning Robot by Angela Liu. To Be the Change by Nico Martinez Nochito. They Said Robots Are by Casey Ame. The World to Come by Jennifer Hudak.
And the first ever Nebula for Poetry goes to The World to Come.
I do need the stool. Oh, I'm honored to be representing speculative poetry for the very first time at the Nebulas. Along with my amazing co-finalists, all of whom are writing beautiful and important work. I would not have written this poem had I not listened to the lived experiences of people with different backgrounds than me. People who helped me reevaluate long-held assumptions and challenge what I'd always been taught. The process was difficult, uncomfortable, and necessary. And I'm so grateful for the people who took the time to help me do so. The World to Come was written during a poetry challenge in the Codex Writers Group, and thanks to everyone in my division who encouraged me to believe in this poem and helped me refine it. It literally would not have been written without you. Thank you to the entire Strange Horizons team who consistently publish the kinds of poetry and fiction that no one else is. Thank you to my husband and kids who not only put up with the weirdness that goes along with the writing territory, but encourage it. I just want to say how much I appreciate everyone who read The World to Come, and in particular to those who reached out to me to tell me what the poem meant to you. I'm humbled and grateful that this poem touched so many people. Poetry can be a potent distillation of experience and emotion, a way to both whisper and shout, to encompass entire worlds, and to look closely at the tiny things that no one pays attention to. Poetry allows us to speak our truths with abandon, so let us do just that. Let us immortalize our dreams in words. Let us write weird and write loud. Let us not be silent. Thank you so much.
Awake and shout for joy, you who dwell in the dust. Isaiah chapter 26, verse 19. I awake in darkness, 6 feet down, bleary from denied eternal rest. My body rebuilds from the base of my spine outward, vertebrae stacking, limbs sprouting, organ and muscle and sinew and skin, until I am whole, wrenched back to life. Please welcome to the stage author, podcaster, and founder of the World Fantasy Award-winning magazine Strange Horizons, Mary Ann Mohanraj.
Hi, everyone. I'm just delighted to be here. This room is full of people I love doing the work I love, and I'm just so proud of you all. I wrote a little speech, but I realized I should tell you a short story first. So if the teleprompter people will bear with me. In 1998, I was a young writer. I was in my late 20s. I went to Worldcon, I think it was Buccaneer, and I went to a panel, and one of the panelists was up for what was then known as the Campbell Award and is now the Astounding Award. And he had counted the number of pro slots that were available for new writers in the pro magazines, new short story writers. There had been 25 in that year, which really seemed like a terrible bottleneck in the field, right? An artificial bottleneck that was keeping so many young writers from breaking out and making it in the pro arena. So I didn't do anything about that right away. I think it was the following WisCon, Gavin Grant was on a panel of Small Beer Press, and he was encouraging all of us to start small presses. And at the end of the panel, he said, "Let 1,000 flowers bloom." And I went home to Oakland, and I called up my friends, and I said, "Do you guys want to start a science fiction fantasy magazine?" So we got together. It was a little bit of a challenge convincing SFWA to take us seriously because we were an online magazine, and it was 2000 when we launched, and there was some questions about, would online publishing ever be reputable and taken seriously? It took a few years before we counted as pro, even though we were paying pro rates from the beginning. But I just want to say, especially given the speeches earlier tonight from our Toastmaster and our Grandmaster, if you see a lack, if you see a challenge, if you see a problem, I would like to encourage you to take an opportunity to build, right, the thing that you'd like to see in the world. And Strange Horizons, in that first year, we published weekly, 51 stories, which means we tripled the number of slots, right? And have done so. We have kept publishing ever since. So that's my little story, in case you didn't know how Strange Horizons came to be. And now, what I was going to talk about is what is a short story. So some claim a short story should offer focused scope. Instead of complex subplots, the narrative should narrow in on a single incident, conflict, or theme. They say it should have a limited cast, featuring only a few characters who are rarely given extensive backstories. And a short story should have a simplified setting. The action takes place in one primary time and location. Now, if you've ever edited an anthology or magazine, you will know that publishing such a list of rules leads to writers immediately deciding that they will be the ones to break every one of them and write a brilliant short story that you'll have to buy. So there. And they're right. There are brilliant short stories that will break every single one of those rules and break your heart in the process. So let's leave those rules behind and talk about what a short story does. The modern short story is surprisingly new. Stories have been told for thousands of years, for as long as humans have gathered around a fire, telling stories to ward off the terror of the dark. Folk and fairy tales, romances, jests and anecdotes, allegories, even moral examples. Don't go near the river, children, or the puka will get you. In the 19th century, we see the prevalence of terms like tale and sketch. Tales draw from the oral tradition, sketches from the written. Across the world and across millennia, we've told each other so many kinds of stories, trying to make sense of the world, of our lives, and the choices that shape and tell us who we are. If you ask an English professor, they'll likely say that the short story's formal debut is generally thought to be the publication of Nathaniel Hawthorne's collection, Twice Told Tales, which first appeared in 1837. Edgar Allan Poe wrote a favorable review of that collection. He claimed the short story should have a more unified effect or impression than a novel. That effect was enhanced by the fact that a short story could easily be read in a single session. Poe said, "During the hour of perusal, the soul of the reader is at the writer's control. The best short stories can capture your soul, and what more could a writer or a reader ask for?" And the finalists for short story are
To Revise by J.R. Dawson, Through the Machine by P.A. Cornell, In My Country by Thomas Hahn, Because I Held His Name Like a Key by Amy Ogden, Laser Eyes Ain't Everything by Effie Seiber, The Tallish Island Songbook of the Dead by E.M. Linden.
And the Nebula Award for short story goes to Laser Eyes Ain't Everything.
Hi everybody, if you're seeing this, I'm so sorry I can't be there with you. The nebulas are literally on my baby's due date, so I've recorded this early as I'm probably pretty busy right now. Thank you all so much for this incredible honor. Like, I'm touched and blown away and a little confused probably. And especially among such incredible company. If you haven't read the other nominated works, please go read every single one of them. There's incredible art in there that you should not miss. I want to say thank you to all of you for voting. Thank you to my husband, Josh Dillon, who's my biggest supporter, my first reader, and the reason I get to make space to write. Thank you to David Steffen at Diabolical Plots for believing in this story and editing it to make it much better. Thank you also to my critiquers, with special thanks to John Wiswell, A.T. Greenblatt, and D.T. Friedman. I wrote this story right after I decided to quit writing. Things weren't going as well as I'd hoped, and I thought maybe this just isn't for me. And then I heard a disabled friend talk about how awful their accessibility experience was at an SFF con. And then another friend told me about a terrible experience at a lit con. And more disabled friends came out and told me horror stories, sometimes about the very venues where they were meant to be celebrated. And I mean, I've had random strangers lean on my wheelchair like it was public infrastructure, so I can sort of relate to all of this frustration. And I got really pissed off on behalf of all my friends. So pissed off that I wrote this piece and unquit writing. And it's been so meaningful to see Laser Eyes resonate with pissed off people of all sorts, and to get to use my voice to make other people feel seen. And I think the lesson I'm taking away from all of this is to never forget that your voice matters. It's one of the most powerful tools we have for change, whether for accessibility at a con or authoritarianism in a country. And in an era of book bans and concentration camps and ICE kidnappings and war crimes, it's up to every one of us to use our voice to make it easier for people to get through today, and to make tomorrow's world just a little bit better. And I mean, your options are either that or zapping things with laser eyes, and I'm pretty sure that's against the fire code. Thank you all so much.
The super-abled 501 local union building wasn't ADA compliant. I sat in my wheelchair next to the 3 steps that led to their front door and groaned. My brand new laser eyes didn't exactly fix my mobility problems. 2 weeks ago, I'd been zapped by a falling piece of alien spaceship debris and developed laser eyes. 10 days ago, I'd lost my job at the city planner's office because of budget cuts. I wasn't even mad, though, because I could never push my projects through, and you know who gets stuff done without anyone getting in their way? The super-abled. As soon as I got home, I filled in my union application. Yesterday, I'd gotten notice that I could join after I demonstrated my new laser eyes in person. And now, here I was, stuck. A rubbery guy walked out the front door, legs stretching and compressing like a slinky. "Excuse me," I said, brandishing my paperwork. "Is there another way into the building?" Stretchy legs looked me up and down. "You sure you're in the right place?"
Congratulations. And now please welcome our presenter for the Nebula Award for Novelette, a microbiologist and professor with over 300 days in space, Kate Ribbons.
Good evening. I'm Kate Ribbons, a scientist and a retired NASA astronaut. I'm here to present the Nebula Award for Best Novelette, works between 7,500 and 17,000 words. I've had the incredible privilege, or perhaps stupidity, of climbing on top of a rocket and leaving this world, and of looking back at Earth from orbit. People ask me what it's like, and I always reach for the same thing that you do when you're trying to describe the indescribable. A story. So, on my first launch, I was a cynical baby astronaut. I was prepared to be not very impressed with the view. I'd seen the movies. I was going to space to do science, obviously, and the rest was window dressing. But to my absolute delight, and perhaps the delight of my crewmates, I was dumbstruck for several minutes at that first glimpse of our Earth. A bright, glowing, blindingly blue sphere suspended in the dark. I couldn't see the whole planet, but it was just enough to take in the world and sear it into my consciousness forever. The ability you all have to transport people with stories is why I'm so honored to be here, presenting the Novelette. To me, it might be the most demanding length we have. A short story is a single breath as you devour the pages. A novel is a whole life. A novelette is just enough room to build a world or crack one open. These writers hand you a reality in the space of an afternoon, and somehow you come back changed, the way you do from orbit, where few quiet minutes can rearrange everything you thought you knew about home. I trained for years to reach that place, but these writers travel there every time they sit down to work. They are, in the truest sense, explorers, and the worlds they've built this year are remarkable. The finalists are
We Begin Where Infinity Ends by Somto Ihezwe. Uncertain Suns by Thomas Ha. Our Echoes Drifting Through the Marsh by Marie Croak. Never Eaten Vegetables by H.H. Pak. The Name Zia by Wenyi Li. The Life and Times of Alavira the Great, as written by Titos Pavlou and reviewed by two lifelong friends, by Evgenia Triantfilo.
The Nebula Award for Novelette goes to Uncertain Suns.
Thank you to SFWA and everyone who read and enjoyed the story. Congrats to all the finalists. Thank you to fellow writers, friends, and family for their support. In particular, my wife, Cynthia, who is far and away the biggest champion of this collection, Uncertain Suns and Other Stories, and the novelette within it. And of course, very big thanks as well to Undertow Publications. If this novelette somehow won, it will have been to my complete surprise and the direct result of Undertow's work. This is an indie press team, Michael Kelly, Carolyn McDonnell, and Vince Haig, along with the talents of forward author Zach Gillen and surrealist cover artist Uwe Tepfa. They are the ones who brought this project to life amid tariff uncertainties, distribution changes, and other challenges, tirelessly, diligently getting this book in the hands of reviewers and readers everywhere. The novelette, Uncertain Suns, is something very personal, nightmares and dreams embedded in equal measure. I really hope my children read it one day and understand that no matter how dark or strange their world may be, that I know they will find their way, that they will surpass and already surpass my greatest aspirations, that my limited imagination could never capture their infinite capacity for goodness, nor capture the pride and wonder Cynthia and I get to experience in parenting them. So I'd really like to dedicate this to them, Luke, Clara, and Fiona. Thank you.
It gets difficult to remember many things. Forgetting is a blessing until you want to remember some of those things. Was the world strange from the beginning, or did we make it that way? Growth and decay seem to take all meaning and memory, given time. Smoky light cracks over the shoulders of the waking city and onto the road-wrapped foothills. A stain-streaked step van, flanked by two motorbikes, buzzes across the shattered asphalt of the 210 in the pre-dawn purples. One of the bikemen waves, holds a fist up, and points at a sopping tangle on the road a few hundred yards ahead. Strewn across 6 lanes, thick, undulating masses catch some of the morning glint on their wet coils. There's a flop of finger whorls gathered in their wet and swampy secretions right in a spot where daily supply trucks will need to pass. The trucks won't get through to the city if this isn't dealt with before the hour's up, and everyone in the crew knows it. So, a few talk and others pray before they steel themselves to clear the roads.
Beautiful. Congratulations. Please welcome writer, editor, and SFWA past president, Kat Rambo.
I'm so tempted to get up on the stool, but I'm not going to. Jim Harrison said, "I write novellas because I don't like loose, sprawling prose." It's one way to look at them, certainly, but the novella is so much more than tight prose. It is a special beast. It doesn't hit you like a projectile. It doesn't slap you in the face or punch you in the gut the way some short stories can. Instead, it builds, it boils, it accumulates pressure and ends definitively, but with a more lingering farewell than those same short stories. You can't write a novella in one sitting the way you may be able to a short story, and so it accumulates in layers, in bits, accreting meaning and resonance, and all those other lovely things that draw us into a piece of fiction, and keep it in our head long after we've turned the page or put down our e-reader. I invoke the e-reader because we're currently in a time when electronic publishing has brought about a resurgence of novellas. In fact, the New York Times recently pronounced us in a golden age of novellas. Certainly, every year seems to bring another bumper crop of excellent, stellar novellas. This year is no exception. It is one of every item on the list is one of those works that makes a writer go, "God damn it. I wish I'd written that." It is a great privilege to present this award to one of the nominees whose excellent work has torn my heart with envy and delight. And the finalists for the Nebula Award for Novella are
As Roots by Amal El-Motal. Descent by Walid Talabi. The Death of Mountains by Jordan Corella. Disgraced Return of the Cap's Needle by Hanan Bernardo. But Not Too Bold by Ochi Puesho. Automatic Noodle by Annaline Newitz.
This is very exciting. And the winner is The River Has Roots.
Hello, everyone at the Nebulas. This is such an honor, made all the greater by the abundance of riches on the Novella ballot. Thank you so much to everyone who placed The River Has Roots in this incredible company, and to all the SFWA volunteers who work so hard every year to make this event possible. I'm deeply grateful, and I really wish I could be among you. I have a whole bunch of people to thank. First, Dongwon Song, my agent and very dear friend. My editorial teams in the US and UK, especially Ali Fisher, Deanna Vega, and Anne Perry. My beloved husband, Stu, for relentless and necessary encouragement throughout the writing and revision process. Kathleen Neely for the gorgeous illustrations in the book, and Spencer Fuller for the enchanting soundscaping and for encouraging my sister and me to write, to play music and sing in the audiobook. Also for finding Gem Carmela, a jewel worthy of her name, to narrate the book. Deepest thanks, of course, must go to my sister, Danya, for being the kind of person who inspires me to write about how much I love her, because it's more efficient than constantly shouting it from the rooftops, which is my only other option. The River Has Roots is about love and grief and sisters, but it's also about language. As writers, we speak a great deal about the power of words to give vent to feelings and articulate difficult truths, but we speak less of the power of words to diffuse responsibility and paper over atrocity. I wrote and revised this book under the mental duress of seeing Israel's genocidal violence against my people, the people of Lebanon and Palestine, denied, excused, laundered in the same language I use to tell stories. I'm receiving this award in the context of those crimes daily worsening with impunity. If you know this and haven't spoken against it, I want to ask you, what stops you? I understand that it can feel enormous and overwhelming to be confronted with so much horror. It can feel impossible to know where to begin, so I want to exhort you all, begin by speaking the truth. Begin by naming the perpetrators and their victims, by recognizing that there is no equivalence between them. As individuals and as members of an organization dedicated to informing, supporting, promoting, defending, and advocating for writers, I want to ask you, what stops you from wielding the enormous power of your words on behalf of the powerless and against those actively and maliciously destroying them? I wrote a book about how magic is a kind of grammar and grammar is a kind of magic. It may be a writer's fantasy to believe that if you speak truly enough, loudly enough, often enough, you can change the world. But we're all writers here. And it being a fantasy is no reason not to try. So, free Palestine. Trans rights are inviolable human rights. So is migration. We are bound together in this world to work for the liberation of all people. I'm honored by the receipt of this award. Thank you very much.
The River Liss runs north to south, and its waters brim with
Congratulations. And that was powerful words, powerful words. And now, please welcome author, scientist, and Nebula Award winner, Darcy Little Badger.
Oyi, Darcy Tawasete Altsese Sheji. Hello, I'm Darcy Little Badger, and I'm very happy to present the Andre Norton Nebula Award for middle grade and young adult fiction. This award recognizes critically important stories, those that inspire young readers. So think back. Can you remember your first science fiction, fantasy, speculative book? Did you read it yourself, or was it read to you? Vividly, I recall my mother sitting in a light green recliner, reading aloud The Ghost Next Door, the 10th Goosebump installment. And then, picture me curled up in that same chair, reading Goosebumps to my little brother. I was hungry for the next story, impatient. So impatient, I wrote my own proto-novels in Lisa Frank notebooks. So impatient, I found other series to adore. And here's a different memory. When I was 12, my parents asked whether I wanted to eat ice cream at Dairy Queen, and I suggested visiting the library instead. In middle grade and high school, books were more than entertainment. They comforted me, expanded my ability to express myself, and taught me the importance of empathy, the rewards of curiosity, and how we must fight for justice, even when the odds seem overwhelming. Here's the wonderful part. Today's finalists are part of that legacy. To readers young and even not so young, they are truly special. And the finalists are
The Tower by David Anaxagoras, Gemini Rising by Jonathan Brazy, Into the Wild Magic by Michelle Knudsen, Wishing Well by Jubilee Cho, Goblin Girl by K.A. Melky, Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins.
The Andre Norton Young Adult Nebula Award for middle grade and young adult fiction goes to Into the Wild Magic.
already cried. It's not good. I didn't even take my speech out of my purse. All right. I'm okay. It says right at the top, Nebula acceptance speech, just in case, in big letters. Everyone tells you to write a speech just in case, and I'm really glad that I listened. I was so honored just to be nominated among this amazing group of writers, and I really did not expect that I would get to be up here right now. Thank you so much for this. Into the Wild Magic is a really important book to me for a lot of reasons, and it's about a lot of things. But at its center, it's about the connections and friendships that keep us going when things are hard. I think stories that explore deep friendships can be especially important for young readers who are still figuring out who they are. I truly believe that so much about what I learned about what it means to be a good person and a good friend came from the books I read when I was young. The ones I read over and over were full of people having these incredible adventures where no matter what else was happening, the most important thing was helping your friends and saving the people you loved. I want to write books that young readers enjoy for the adventures and the creatures and the characters, but also ones that bring them hope, that help them believe in the goodness of other people, and that encourage them to meet the world with kindness and compassion, no matter what challenges that world may throw their way. I would like to thank my agent, Jody Reamer, my editor, Sarah Ketchersid, and all of the fine people at Candlewick Press who copy edited and designed and marketed and promoted and sold and otherwise helped this book come into being and find its way to readers. I also want to thank artist Jen Bricking, who created the beautiful jacket illustration and the art for the dragon stickers that I was giving out to people. If you have one of those, that's Jen Bricking too. I lost my place. I should not have diverted. I want to thank my writer friends, my non-writer friends, and my family for always supporting me, especially my husband, Jazz. Thank you. Almost done. And most of all, I want to thank everyone who read and voted for my book. I have dreamed of winning a Nebula since my teenage years, which was a very long time ago. And I still can't really believe that it's actually happened. Thank you so much.
Poking at the ground with a stick. Her long, dark hair was pulled into a messy ponytail, and strands of it were coming down to cover her eyes. Bevy hated when her own hair got in her eyes. She didn't know how the other girl could stand it. Maybe she couldn't stand it. She sure didn't look very happy. Her mouth was pulled down at the edges, like someone who was thinking about very unpleasant things. Normally, Bevy would never have dreamed of going over to talk to her. But the girl was sitting in her corner. There was a giant sugar maple there, just outside the iron schoolyard fence, and its big, leaf-laden branches reached over and around in a way that somehow made the ground beneath seem hidden and safe. Bevy knew it wasn't safe, not really, but when she sat there during recess, the other kids usually left her alone.
I was just falling into that story. So congratulations, and please welcome to the stage SFWA President Kate Ristaw and Vice President Anthony Eichenlaub.
Do you want the stool?
No, I think I'm good.
Tonight, as we celebrate the best of speculative fiction, we also have the honor of recognizing those who came before us, laying the foundations of groundbreaking possibility that are made our genre what it is today.
Tonight's Infinity Award winner is Roger Zelazny, who was no stranger to world building.
And world breaking.
His characters could manipulate their realities.
They could walk between worlds.
They could essentially write, rewrite, and revise the world around them.
They could reshape and redefine the very nature of reality, from family feuds to societies desperately in need of a rewrite.
They were cosmic editors, dramatically altering the course of the future in pursuit of justice, equality, and, well, a better narrative. Don't you wish you could do that?
I have no idea.
Okay.
Oh, okay, but the reality breaking wasn't just a concept in Roger's work. It was emotional. It was real. It was desire and memory and trauma. It was layers of anger, possibility, and life. It was the seed of the multiverse.
Exactly. The Amber Chronicles has 10 books, but Roger wrote more than 30 novels, as well as numerous short story collections, poems, collaborative works. He was also a master of the short fiction genre.
Max Gladstone wrote that there has never been an SF author more interested in the line between the mortal and the divine, nor has there been one who has had so much fun playing hopscotch over it and encouraging his readers to do the same.
George R. R. Martin said of him, he was a poet first, last, always. His words sang.
Roger's impact lingers on with us, shaping how we think about multiverses and how we create characters that are nuanced, complicated, and sometimes deeply flawed.
As we look toward the bright future of SFF, we honor the legacy he left for us.
Tonight we are honored to present this year's Infinity Award to Roger Zelazny, here to accept the award in his daughter, Shannon Zelazny.
Should I stand? I feel really tall. I think it's really cool that these awards are in Chicago, because it was 125 years ago that Stanley Zelazny, an immigrant from Poland, he moved the family over from Russian-occupied Poland to give his family a better life. So I think he would be smiling now to know his grandson received this award. And he'd also be really happy to know there's a category for poetry, because part of him wanted to be a poet, but his college professor said he wouldn't be able to make a living. So let's see. Roger Zelazny may not have lived long enough to have formally been labeled a Grand Master, but he was most certainly grand and a master. In a personal paper my father wrote, as an only child, I was sufficiently pleased with my own company, with books, with radio dramas, and with a regular diet of Saturday matinees at the Shore Theater, that I kept to myself a good deal. Roger spent a lot of time in the library of his elementary school. It is there where he met the gods. Their stories inspired him to start writing his own. He filled up nickel notebooks with stories and illustrations before he discovered science fiction. Once he did, he knew that sci-fi was what he wanted to write, and all of his stories were of that genre afterwards. He said he knew pre-puberty that he was going to be a writer. He never doubted it for a moment. When his father gifted him a typewriter, little Roger taught himself how to put manuscripts together, and he began to send them out to magazines. Fortunately, he didn't let all the rejection letters deter him from his dream. Roger's second love was poetry. As George R. Martin said, he was a poet, first, last, and always. He was. He loved words and playing with them. A true magician, he delighted in rhythmically spinning his playthings to raise up worlds and creatures who he would then dance with until it came time to part ways. In the Zelazny household, my father's office appeared as though it was at the end of the house, but it was really in another dimension. It used to be the garage, but after a horrendous film adaptation of his post-apocalyptic novel, Damnation Alley, he had the money to remodel it into a nice office. He was quite embarrassed by the film. Someone once asked him how he felt knowing that they ruined the book, and he replied, "They didn't ruin the book. Still a great book. They just made a crappy movie." Even as a child, I could sense that within the confines of his office, he'd found a way to jump out of this world or bring others to him. I just didn't have the words to describe it until I read his young adult book, A Dark Traveling, in which kids jump back and forth between parallel worlds looking for their dad. I was certain this is what he was doing in there, until years later when I read Nine Princes in Amber. I was wrong. He wasn't jumping to parallel worlds. He was bending reality and shifting into other dimensions at will. I suspect there are portals all over his office that he managed to open up in order to travel out of space and time into other realms. A well-known writer once told me that he didn't particularly enjoy the act of writing. That surprised me. I assumed that all successful writers must surely enjoy writing. After all, that is what I witnessed in my household growing up. My dad always amused himself, both in general and with his writing. The craft never appeared to grow dull or boring. In an interview I read recently, remarkably, he claimed never to have had writer's block, only the frustration of being blocked from writing. As a child, he found his passion, and he managed to keep it alive until the end. My brother Trent and I used to reminisce on the time when our dad was writing A Night in the Lonesome October, near the end of his life. Every evening when he would emerge from his office for a break, he was exceptionally jovial, smiling and laughing. He was just so darn excited and pleased with how the book was unfolding. He was aglow and wrote that book in 1 month's time. I feel honored that I got to witness the master at work, truly enjoying his gift from the gods, a gift we now enjoy secondhand. As an 80s kid, I find it amusing that Masters of the Universe was just released this weekend in theaters, the same weekend that one of the greatest masters of science fiction and fantasy is being honored with this Infinity Award. Roger Zelazny was truly a master of his own universe, and I thank you, SFWA, for recognizing his legacy.
Please welcome to the stage the Executive Director of the Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers Association, Isis Asare.
I will also skip the stool for obvious reasons. So I have my speech prepared to present the Novel Award, but before I do that, I have some really exciting news. So I just learned, the producers told me in the back, that Tananarive Due won a Stoker Award. Okay. So this year's finalists for novel took us across times, realities, and cultures. From major publishing houses to noble indie presses, these works illustrate that science fiction and fantasy is not an escape. It's a courageous interrogation of humanity that ultimately provides us with new ways of telling the truth, our truth. Telling the truth has always been important to me. So I'm polyamorous, I'm queer, I'm Black, and I'm neurodivergent, so I'm dyslexic. Many of the organizations I worked with refused to respect the magic of my leadership, informed by feminist principles, rooted in the belief that rest is revolutionary and leveled up by love. I had to break the world around me, and to be honest, I'm still living in that rubble, to create one to give birth to Sister Sci-Fi. And you might be wondering, what is Sister Sci-Fi? Sister Sci-Fi was molded by Octavia E. Butler's Earthseed, liberating me to create community that is motivated to embody the themes of speculative fiction. I collaborated with Jill Gomez, Tamika Thompson, and Tananarive Due to bring together hundreds to celebrate the healing power of Black horror. Annalee Newett and Charlie Jane Anders worked with me to explore how we can all use feminist futurism to combat Project 2025 at Worldcon. And for another tie-in, that conversation was ultimately published in Strange Horizons, so thank you for that. That laid the groundwork for me to world build with literary organizations such as Otley Books, the Carl Brandon Society, and of course, SFWA. I'm excited to continue to support authors like yourself and tonight's finalists who so generously and continuously inspired me. Finalists Stephen Graham Jones and Nnedi Okorafor used the powerful tool of the story within the story to offer the reader a complex exploration of intergenerational trauma. John Wiswell and R.F. Kwon sourced ancient Greek mythology for inspiration to create literary experiences that echo like memory while ringing of psychological healing, growth, and actualization. Daryl Gregory and Emily Tesh created imaginative alternate realities that tackle and analyze very real issues of our society. And my favorite, Natalia Theodo-Rideau bravely fought the patriarchy. The commonality across all the nominated titles is that each author's bravery to love their readers passionately. To write at this level, the authors had to be vulnerable enough to share their most tender parts. To me, that's love. It's a love that says, I will not look away, and I will not let you look away either. It says, let's break this world apart and together build a new one. I am so honored to be a witness of that bravery and that love in speculative literature. I will forever be grateful. Please join me in celebrating all of this year's Nebula finalists for novel. And the finalists are
Incandescent by Emily Tesh. Death of the Author by Nnedi Okorafor. Wearing the Lion by John Wiswell. The Buffalo Hunter by Stephen Graham Jones. Sour Cherry by Natalia Theodoridou. Catabasis by R.F. Kwon. When We Were Real by Daryl Gregory.
And the Nebula Award for novel goes to Buffalo Hunter by Stephen Graham Jones.
Wow. I wish I were in the room with y'all right now. I mean, I guess I may be on a screen where my head is huge, right? And I'm supposed to say smart things, but I'm just in wow mode. I can't believe that this would happen. I never expected to even be in the running for a Nebula. Such an honor just to be on that final ballot alongside these other amazing finalists. Just being in a company is an award all on its own, right? But thank you for reading this vampire novel. Set way back when, said a little bit now. Thank you for, hanging out with Good Stab and Arthur and Etsy. I hung out with them as well, and I miss them, but they're always there in that book, right? It means a lot. This means a whole lot. And it's completely surprising, and I strongly suspect you'll never see this speech, because I don't think I I'm the winner, but um, I have to submit something. So here I am submitting something on the 1% chance that I actually somehow win. So if that's happened, I'm floored. I don't have anything to say other than wow. Thanks to my editor, Joe Monte, my agent, BJ Robbins, my publisher, Saga at Simon & Schuster, everyone involved with Saga who gets this book out there. It makes it better. You know, writing a novel is not a, I mean, we like to romantically say it's a solitary thing, but if only it were. I know it's my name that goes on the cover, but I feel like half the good ideas, if they are good ideas, are not my ideas at all. I just like put some stuff I think down as fun, and then Joe and BJ and other people help me shape it into something that can make it into a ceremony like this. And hopefully make it into people's hearts. That's really the important part. Thank you so much.
A day worker reaches into the wall of the parsonage his crew's revamping and pulls a piece of history up, the edges of its pages crumbling under the fingers of his glove. And I have to think that if his supervisor isn't walking by at just that moment, then this construction grunt stuffs that journal from a century ago into his tool belt to pawn or trade for beer, and the world never knows about it. If this works out, though, then I owe that day worker my career. In January, I wasn't exactly denied tenure, but I was told that, instead of continuing with my application, I consider asking for the extension I'm currently on. The issue wasn't my teaching. I'm the day worker of communication and journalism, covering all the 1,000 and 2,000 level courses. It was that my publications aren't up to University of Wyoming standards for promotion. See, get a book under contract, Etsy, and then we'll talk.
Oh my goodness. Oh, you guys. And I'm so excited for Stephen Graham Jones, who is also with me at Saga Press. And so anyway, congratulations to Stephen Graham Jones. And the 61st annual Nebulas is almost over, I promise you. But there's actually still so much more to come. We have 2 invitations for you tonight. First, we invite you to join us for our Constellations Weekend of Professional Development later this month. And second, as we wrap up the 61st Annual Nebula Awards, we invite you to join us at the 62nd. We are proud to announce that in 2027, the Nebulas are headed to Seattle. So mark your calendars for June 3rd through 6th. But we still have some celebrating to do tonight. The Nebula Awards Showcase 61, which contains works from this year's winners and finalists, will go on sale soon. But a lucky few of you in person here tonight will win an advance copy. Check under your chairs for a winning sticker with a special QR code. We're fancy. With a special QR code. Okay. It's not car keys, but it's still fun. Oh, wait a minute. The fix is in. It would look like this. It would look like this. So, all right, lucky winners. So speaking of winners, we request that tonight's Nebula Award winners please come to the stage at the end of the ceremony for photos. And for those of you in the room with us here tonight, please join us directly after the ceremony in O'Hare 5 for karaoke with Curtis Chen. All right, don't miss that. Woo! What an amazing evening. Congratulations to all of us here, including the winners, of course, but really to all of us for experiencing this evening of joy and celebration. Tonight, we have bent space and time to celebrate writers and writing across genre and format. We welcomed poetry and comics as Nebula Awards. And we recognize N.K. Jemisin as our newest Grand Master. So now, after feasting on joy, hopefully our spirits are full, so we can go back outside, sorry, armed to face the blizzard of troubles still plaguing our nation and world. What are our weapons? Rest. I'll say that again. Rest, art, knowledge, community, compassion, empathy, resources, plans, courage, hope, faith, love. Love, love. And before we leave this grand event fired up and ready to go, as my father likes to say, and head back home to face the latest draft of our latest project, I'd like to share just a brief thought about actual nebulae. That's what happened, nebulae. I thought nebulae is what they say. It's not the one founded by the science fiction writers of America in 1966, but the ones in the playground that inspire so many of you as writers in space. According to the Space Center Houston, a nebula is, quote, an enormous cloud of dust and gas occupying the space between stars and acting as a nursery for new stars. The roots of the word from the Latin means a mist, vapor, fog, smoke, exhalation. Nebulae either form through clouds of cold interstellar gas and dust or through the aftermath of a supernova. Okay, so mist, vapor, fog, smoke, exhalation. What I love about this definition is that it's so apt for our struggles in 2026 as we face the specters of war, voter disenfranchisement, bigotry, and yes, genocide. For many of us who feel like we are living in unprecedented times, it's hard not to feel like we are at the end of something we held precious, even if it was only an ideal, a dream. And yes, a nebula can signify an ending, but it's also a nursery for new stars. So it simultaneously signifies a beginning. You see where I'm going with this. The next chapter. Older stars die, new stars are born, and as Octavia Butler wrote in her Earthseed parables, the destiny of Earthseed is in the stars. And recently something rather extraordinary happened. A nation weary of hate, weary of uncertainty and division, gathered to watch the live feed of the Artemis II space mission, the first crewed flyby mission in 50 years. We watched that, which included Victor Glover, the first Black man to pilot a lunar space mission, Captain Reed Wiseman, a Canadian, Jeremy Hansen. That shouldn't be a big deal, but in 2026, it's a Canadian. And the first, and Christina Cook is how they pronounce it, the first woman to fly so close to the moon. As we watch their brilliance and camaraderie in that spacecraft, vicariously enjoying their thrill of the mission, we collectively remembered something important. Despite whatever issues are still plaguing us, and there are many, we still have the potent power of imagination. In short, people felt joy in a way they weren't expecting. Many of us had no idea a space mission was even in the works or that NASA was still a thing. The next thing we knew, we were glued to our screens to get to know these astronauts and remember how excited we were about space when we were young. So much of our entertainment is set in space, that final frontier. For those 9 magical days, our social media feeds were celebrating science and human accomplishment, and so many women at mission control helping to bring them safely home. We saw astronauts play wrestling and moisturizing in real time. And it was like we were there in space with them. During those 9 days, we also shared stories about the previous space missions of our youth, both the triumphs and tragedies, as moments that bound us together instead of rending us apart. And if we can imagine ourselves in space with the lunar mission to help teach us what we need to know to begin mapping a journey to Mars, Surely we can imagine better ways to live together here on Earth, can't we? More humane ways, more honest ways. And as artists and a writing community who live in a world of imagination, older stars die, new stars are born. We are the witnesses. We are the navigators of this time. And as storytellers, we are more than that. We are the curators. We are incubators. We are speculators. We are soothsayers. And whether you believe it or not, we are lifesavers. So good night, precious ones, and don't forget to dance. Speaking of dancing, where's my favorite dance partner, Stephen Barnes? Please join me up here. And DJ, turn up the music.
Test.
If finalists and winners can please report to the stage. Finalists and winners to the stage.